Rock and roll has always thrived on counterculture and controversy, but every so often, an artist would take things just a little bit too far and end up banned, be it from the radio, MTV, or what have you. Now, of course, this could be viewed as a negative, as you're not going to get the same amount of publicity from those outlets. But on the other hand, think of it this way. If you're a teenager, what's going to make you want to seek out an artist or a song more than your parents telling you, don't listen to this? It's just human nature. So this is another really fun subject that I plan on exploring more in future videos. But for now, let's get started with 3 songs that were banned in one form or another. So we begin with a case in which the Rolling Stones scored what I guess you would call the coveted double ban award. Not only was the song Street Fighting Man banned in some radio markets in the US, the cover for the album from which it was taken was also banned and replaced by a very boring and innocuous one made to look like an invitation with the letters RSVP on the bottom. The original cover, which we saw in the beginning and which I'll put up again here, featured a disgusting, heavily graffitied public restroom wall. Pretty tame stuff today in 2025, but in 1968, the record company deemed it no bueno. As for the song itself, its troubles arose from the fact that it was released within days of the violent confrontations that took place between police and anti-Vietnam War protesters at the 1968 Democratic Convention in Chicago. Local radio stations began to worry about inciting further violence and so decided not to play the song. Even though the ban was mostly centered around Chicago, that was a very big market, and it did contribute to a general reticence and squeamishness among radio programmers around the country to playing the song, and is often thought to have contributed to the fact that Street Fighting Man didn't perform quite as well as most Stones singles. On the other hand, Mick Jagger was quoted as saying, "I'm very pleased to hear they've banned the record. The last time they banned one of our records in the US, it sold 1 million. So what was all the fuss about? Jagger's lyrics seemed to wobble between angry, rabble-rousing verses and a chorus in which he bewails his own political impotence. Verse 1, "Everywhere I hear the sound of marching, charging feet, 'cause summer's here and the time is right for fighting in the street." By the way, I love that little nod to the Martha Reeves and the Vandellas classic Dancing in the Street. That's so cool. Verse 3 is even more violent. "Hey, said my name is called Disturbance. I'll shout and scream, I'll kill the king, I'll rail at all his servants." But then we get the chorus. "But what can a poor boy do except to sing for a rock and roll band? 'Cause in sleepy London town, there's just no place for a street fighting man." Clearly, these lyrics were not intended to have anything to do with the events in Chicago. Musically, it's very straightforward, as are most Stones tunes. He busts out the open tuning. He usually prefers G, but this one is D. D, A, D, F sharp, A, D. Barring the 10th fret, he gets a C major chord, and then adds that classic Keith double sus, which is used in almost every big Stones tune. It's a combination of a sus4 and a 6, kind of a blues shuffle thing. Just sounds so good.
Everywhere I hear the sound of marching, charging people, summer's here and the time is right for fighting in the street, boy.
There's an old saying that goes, sometimes you can't win for losing, and I think that very much applies to Brown Eyed Girl. Released in 1967, the first solo single from Van Morrison, the tune was originally titled Brown Skinned Girl, but in a time when interracial relationships were not nearly as common as they are today, it was decided to change the title to Brown Eyed Girl at the last minute. But guess what? The song got banned by many radio stations anyway, due to the line in the third verse, "Making love in the green grass." As is the case with many songs that were banned in the 60s and 70s, I realize this stuff sounds laughably tame by today's standards, but hey, it was a different world. And I have mixed feelings about this. On one hand, I think I'm all for complete artistic freedom and being able to do exactly what you want. But on the other hand, I do think any kind of art can benefit from having some sort of constraints and limitations. In a world like today where pretty much anything is permitted, people are going to take advantage of that. And I think that explains why so much pop music today has degenerated into filth-ridden tirades, which are really not all that interesting. It's just like with old movies. You couldn't have a gratuitous graphic sex scene, so you would have to imply what was going on. And I think it forces you to be more creative. I'd be interested to know if any of you have thoughts on this subject. But at any rate, they got around all this by creating a radio edit in which the offensive line, "Making love in the green grass," was replaced with "Laughing and a running, hey, hey," from the first verse, kind of a cut and paste, I guess. So apparently making love was taboo, but laughing and a running was A-okay. I don't believe I've ever heard the radio edit. I think by the time I was old enough to be aware of this song, any taboos that it contained had pretty much disappeared. Incidentally, regarding the title change, in at least one interview, Morrison makes it sound like it was all just an oversight, and I'll quote here, "That was just a mistake. It was a kind of Jamaican song, calypso." That's interesting. I never thought of it that way, but yeah, I guess I could hear elements of that style. "It just slipped my mind. I changed the title. After we'd recorded it, I looked at the tape box, and I didn't even notice that I'd changed the title. I looked at the box where I'd lain it down with my guitar, and it said Brown Eyed Girl on the tape box. It's just one of those things that happen." Now, I have to admit, that all sounds a little bit sketchy to me. Morrison has long been known as a cantankerous old geezer and a bit of a contrarian, and that really sounds to me as if he's trying to minimize the fact that the title was changed to increase the song's commercial viability. Maybe he wouldn't want to be known for caving in that way. I have nothing to base this on other than just a gut feel. Let me know what you guys think. Whatever the case, I've long thought that Van Morrison is a master at capturing the wonder and exuberance of youth. This song is an ode to two young people just beginning to explore their burgeoning sexuality. Hey, where did we go? Days when the rains came. Down in the hollow, playing a new game. Laughing and a running, hey, hey, skipping and a jumping. In the misty morning fog with our hearts a-thumping, and you, my brown-eyed girl. That intro riff is so iconic. The song begins on a G major chord, and lead guitarist Al Gorgoni simply runs up the first three steps of the G scale and then back down again, all harmonized in thirds. Then the chord switches to C, and we get the same exact move, now rooted on the C note. Now whatever happened to Tuesday so slow? Going down the old man's with a transistor radio. Standing in the sunlight loud, hiding high in rainbow's ball. Slipping and it's sliding all along the waterfall with you, my brown-eyed girl. You are my brown-eyed girl.
God save the Queen. She ain't no human being. There is no future in England's dreaming. Tell me so, I don't want you want it. Tell me so, I don't want you need. There's no future, no future, no future for you. God save the Queen.
And for our third band song, we're going to go punk rock. The Sex Pistols, God Save the Queen, from their one and only studio album, Nevermind the Bollocks, Here's the Sex Pistols, released just in time for Queen Elizabeth's Silver Jubilee in 1977. The title, of course, comes directly from Britain's national anthem, and the lyrics, delivered in the classic Johnny Rotten snarl, are not complimentary, to say the least. God save the Queen, the fascist regime. It made you a moron, potential H-bomb. God save the Queen, she ain't no human being. There is no future in England's dreaming. Now, I'm not here to support or attack the British monarchy. It doesn't affect me one way or the other. But whatever it is, to call it a fascist regime, I think is a little bit over the top. Fascist is a word that gets tossed around very casually to this day, and it's clear that most people who use it have no idea what it means. I think I'm going to have to go with Inigo Montoya from Princess Bride on this one.
He didn't fall? Inconceivable. You keep using the word. I don't think it means what you think it means.
The BBC immediately banned the track in the UK. They could hardly do anything else, with BBC Two radio controller Charles McClelland saying the song was in gross bad taste. In spite of this, the song made it to number 1 on the New Musical Express chart and number 2 on the official UK singles chart. But even that was mired in controversy. Rumors quickly spread that the chart had been rigged to prevent the tune from reaching number 1, and it looks like there may be some truth to that. According to The Independent, the compilers of the chart randomly decreed that retailers that sold their own releases would not be able to include those sales in their totals. That would have potentially had a huge effect on God Save the Queen. The band's record label was Virgin, and so that would mean that any sales at Virgin megastores, you guys remember those, would not be included. I should also mention that in 2001, the BBC referred to the song as having reached number 1, which sure sounds to me like an admission that maybe some shenanigans were going on back in the day. In interviews, Johnny Rotten, real name John Lydon, has consistently come across as far less vitriolic about the British monarchy. He claimed that the song was really intended to evoke sympathy for the British working class, saying, "You don't write a song like God Save the Queen because you hate the English race. You write it because you love them and you're fed up with them being mistreated." In 2015, Lydon was quoted as saying, "I never said I didn't like the Queen, I just don't like the institution." Okay, that's definitely some revisionist history. As we just heard, he literally calls her a moron in the song, but okay. The real clincher came in 2022 when the Queen passed away and Lydon took to Twitter to pay tribute. He also refused to use the song to capitalize commercially in any way from the Queen's death. So I guess even punk rockers tend to mellow as they age. Musically, it's punk rock, so of course, no great musical revelations, but I do think it's incredible listening back to this. You can hear pretty much all the hallmarks of punk rock to this day. These guys pretty much wrote the book, in my opinion. Note the way they slide into those chords from a half step below. Classic punk rock move. Unlike most punk rock albums, this thing actually sounds good. The production's got some oomph. And of course the vocal, the whiny snarl. I love the way he rolls the R there. Now listen to this part coming up here and the way the vocal interacts with the chord. So what we just heard there was an E power chord on the guitar, but Lydon's vocal stubbornly lands a half step low on a D sharp. That's the 7th. Every once in a while he'll move up and touch on the root, but generally he's down below, and that creates that punk rock dissonance. I guarantee you Lydon was not thinking, oh, I'm going to land on the 7th here, but I think he intuitively knew that that was a sound that would get kids' parents saying, turn that noise down, which is really what rock and roll has been all about from the beginning, right? Okay, that's it for this time. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget, if you'd like to make a financial contribution, that is very much appreciated. Buy me a coffee, PayPal, Zelle, and Venmo. And remember, Buy Me a Coffee now offers a monthly option. You can make any sort of donation you want, and there's a little box you can check to make it a recurring monthly thing. You could stop it at any time, but that would be great. Please consider it. Otherwise, we'll see you next time.